My name is Patrick McKenna, and I live in Sainte Foy, Quebec, on Gingras Street. And today I will tell you about the McKenna family, in particular my great-grandfather, when I discovered that he was in Quebec City in 1847. And he was a laborer clerk, and he lived in Lower Quebec, in downtown Quebec, for approximately 10 years. And eventually he was hired by the immigration agent in Quebec, Alexander Carlisle Buchanan, and he worked for immigration until he died in 1867, the year of Confederation. He was married to his wife. Sarah Neville was his wife, and she gave birth to 7 children, and 3 of them died shortly after birth. And my grandfather, Eugene, and his brother James Jr., and their 2 elder sisters lived until adulthood. And eventually my grandfather married Ellen Kelly, and after a year she had a child, and she died shortly after the birth, and the child also passed away a few years after, later on. And in the meantime, he and his brother James Jr. and my grandfather Eugene worked for the Intercolonial Railway, and and after a few years he married Ellen Kelly from Quebec, and after she gave birth to a child, she passed away, and the child lived for a few years and also died. Then a few years later he married Cecilia Duffy, and he was married in Montreal at St. Patrick's Cathedral. And Cecilia Duffy was born at sea in 1857 on June the 30th, and was baptized at Grosse Hill on July the 7th. So, and she gave birth to 7 children, and one of them died at birth, and there were 5 daughters, and my father was the only boy, and they survived until the 1980s. My grandfather passed away in 1906, and my grandmother, Cecilia Duffy, continued to live in that house until 1926. In 1924, a plaque was put on the house, and it was written La Maison McKenna. It was French. It was written in French, but it was put there. It was a bronze plaque, and it was put there by the Canadian government and the province of Quebec. Both emblems were on the plaque, and eventually it disappeared. And I had the city put a commemorative plaque on the house, and it's still there today with James McKenna's name in memory of the famine, and it was well accepted, and it is still there. In 1926, my grandmother Cecilia Duffy McKenna sold the McKenna house to the Quebec Seminary, and it was used for a few years as a music school, one of their music school at Laval University. While she was a very active person, and was very involved in at St. Patrick's Parish in organizing fundraisers for St. Bridget's Asylum, and she was very active for the elderly and the children that had no parents.